How's it? Matt back again for what was going to be the second video in the stress management training series I was putting up. But, after thinking about it more, now I'll probably just make it its own standalone thing on meditation. With that said, some of my background and interest on the topic. So meditation's been a on again, off again, steady part of my life since my early teens. Got into it because of lucid dreaming. Really getting into it in a real consistent, steady way again since 2013. If you've seen some other videos and stuff. And the reason why it was going to be a part of the stress management series is because that's normally how I cover it. So for work, a number of years ago, we go out and give a lot of trainings for work. So it got to the point to where we wanted to update our stress management training, and so I took that opportunity on. And in the course of making the presentation, it just kind of naturally led itself to talking about mindfulness as a way to help manage stress, obviously. So with that being said, the whole first part of this training is going to have a kind of mindfulness bent to it and a stress management bent to it. But because this isn't for work and I can do whatever I want, in the back half when we start actually talking about meditation, I'll kind of get off. I'll get off of just strictly mindfulness and kind of talk about my thoughts on it in general. First of all, let's go ahead and define mindfulness. And these two definitions came straight from Google. First, we'll do the kind of more broad general definition, right? The quality or state of being conscious or aware of something. Sounds good. Or the more Buddhist stress management type definition, a mental state achieved by focusing one's awareness on the present moment while calmly acknowledging and accepting one's feelings, thoughts, and bodily sensations, right? So both of those are fine, but I felt like I wanted to kind of put in my own definition in there and how I kind of think about it. So for my general definition, I got to hold something in mind without distraction or forgetfulness, and then to recall. And I think it's important to put in the to recall part because you will guarantee forget and get distracted. So, the other part about it is remembering what you're trying to pay attention to, and then, dropping those thoughts and say coming back to your breath or whatever. Then we have the more, Buddhist stress management type definition. And so this is a very, very common one I'm sure everybody's heard of before, but moment to moment non-judgmental awareness. And the real important thing there to kind of underline is that whole non-judgmental part. All right, so the research is in meditation has been studied in the West since the 50s with pretty much good results all the way through. If you're wondering what the most studied form of meditation is in the West, it's something called MBSR, mindfulness-based stress reduction. It's a really awesome way to kind of learn this stuff. I know there's a lot of different avenues and ways to learn meditation nowadays, but MBSR is like the first one to bring it to the West, and it's been proven for decades. It's like an 8-week course. A lot of places online will try to charge you for it. I think there was 2 free ones. I remember when I looked a number of years ago. I did one of them at this place called Palouse Mindfulness, Palouse. Really great. So I would totally recommend that if you wanted to give that if you wanted to check that out. Also in 2013, John Hopkins did a study wanting to show how a mindfulness practice, or wanted to see how a mindfulness practice helped with anxiety and depression versus medications. And so they didn't do the study themselves. They just basically looked through all these different studies dating back to the 50s, and so they dig through like 1,000 or so studies on the topic. But out of those 1,000, they could only find 47 that seemed legit, right? And then it happened to be that all those 47 happened to say the same thing, that a mindfulness practice was as effective for anxiety and depression as these medications were, without the potential side effects that some of these medications could bring. But I think the kind of devil's in the details there, right? Like they had to go through 1,000, they could only find 47, and they all kind of said the same thing, right? When this awesome book came out a number of years ago called Altered Traits, it's really just kind of got at how hard it is to do real solid replicable studies on meditation. There's just so many varying factors in it, right? It's just hard. It's hard to do. And the takeaway I got from the book was, don't meditate because of what some study you happen to read online one day says, because there's better reasons that can be directly experienced by you, the practitioner. So really you should be kind of pursuing those and keeping your eye out for those things. And I'll give you an example. So one of the things you want to have with a mindfulness practice is to be caught up in these stories you're telling yourself a little bit less often throughout the day, and actually be mindful to what's going on and what's taking place. Interesting side note, that's why it's also very good for lucid dreaming, because If you're checking in with yourself mindfully throughout the day, you're going to eventually do it when you're sleeping at night, and then you'll realize one day you're talking to a trash can and there's a flying elephant. Oh, that's kind of weird. Maybe I'm dreaming, and then you can go ahead and spontaneously get lucid. But anyway, back to the story. So a number of years ago, when my older son, who's 6 now, was he, maybe 3? Yeah, 3, maybe late 2s, 3. Anyway, old enough to know right from wrong, and well, to some degree, and old enough to kind of try and get back at us any way he could, right? So one morning, me and him are butting heads. He's being naughty. I'm taking away his toys, the iPad, making him do homework, putting him on timeout. Whatever it is I gotta do to kind of try and get control of the situation, right? Problem is, we're just butting heads all morning, okay? So then lunchtime rolls around, and I'm like, okay, Dre, what you want to eat? Get him his food or whatever, right? Plop him down on the table, and he's not eating, right? He's just kind of sitting there staring at his food with this pouty look on his face. I mean, and he knows that's a surefire way to make me and Mama pissed, right? So I see what's happening. I'm like, I'm getting kind of mad here, but I'm like, you know what? I'm going to give him a chance. Okay, I'm like, okay, Dre, I'm going to go finish doing what I'm doing over here. When I come back, you better start eating. So I'm gone for like 5 minutes or so. I come back, and sure enough, same thing's going on, right? Pouty look, staring at his food. And so what happened in the moment is my anger spiked, and I was about to just kind of start yelling at him and laying into him, right? But then mindfulness kicked in, right? And when mindfulness kicked in, I realized what was happening. I was getting lost in the story I was telling myself all day that my son has a vendetta out to get me or something, and I got to teach him a lesson, right? But really, me kind of getting madder at him and restricting, stuff hasn't been working all morning. We're just getting more fed up with each other, really, right? So I see what I'm about to do. I'm about to blow up on him, and then I kind of catch myself, and I try to stop it. So I try to just let it go, right? I try to let it go, try to have the look on my face change because I was pissed. And then I take him from the table into the bedroom because, Mama was there, and sometimes he'll put on a bigger show in front of Mama, essentially. So I take him from the table into the room, which is weird. Okay, so he's already kind of looking at me thinking like, oh shit, like what's about to happen now, right? We get into the room, and I kind of sit him down in front of me, and I give him this mindfulness speech about being angry, right? And it's basically like, okay, the only way to be mad is to be constantly thinking about something that's making you mad, right? Once you stop thinking about it, poof, like magic, you're not mad anymore, right? A lot easier said than done, as I'm trying to pretend like I'm doing that right now, even though in the back of my head, I'm still pretty pissed, right? So my son sits there. He at least pretends like he's paying attention, right? I say what I got to say, and then I change the topic. So at the time, I was taking him to the beach all the time, right? Oh, actually, come to think of it, I was taking him to the beach. So he must have been like, so he definitely wasn't 2. He was maybe 3, maybe even like late 3s. Anyway, so we're going to the beach all the time. He was going to preschool, and on the way back from preschool, we passed by this tracks, this beach we used to love. Well, we do love going to. Anyway, so I'm getting him used to over there. He's getting used to he's getting really confident in the water. The waves can smack him around on the sand. He can get sucked out, but he'll tread water and wait for the next wave to push him back up the sand. So, impressive stuff for a young kid. And so as I'm telling him this, I see his whole demeanor and everything change. Yeah. And he's like, oh yeah, I want to tell my kumus about blah, 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 and going to the beach and all this. And as I'm doing this, I'm looking at it, I'm thinking wow, either he really listened to what I said, or maybe kids are just good at this, but he dropped that anger shit like that. And he was, boom, he was all good. He came outside after that. Rest of the day was fine, ate his food, everything was all cherry. And like I said, it was kind of funny because I'm over here telling him this story, pretending like I'm not mad, but really in the back of my head, I was still pretty fed up with him. But nonetheless, it was a neat example of kind of how this stuff can really work, and also how great kids are at dropping shit. A question I also get sometimes is who should meditate? Is meditation good for everyone? And I used to be like, oh, hell yeah, of course it is, right? But really, I think now thinking about it, I probably would say, no, it's not. There's got to be some people who, maybe you have, PTSD or something like that, where maybe sitting alone by yourself might not be the best idea. Then again, maybe you could meditate or have a meditation mindfulness practice, but maybe you should do it in a professional setting. So I think the better question is, is it good for the majority? And for that, I would definitely say yes, right? The problem pretty much everybody runs into is this, right? I'm no good at this, I don't see the point, or it's boring. And everybody will run into this. Guarantee in the beginning and guarantee again throughout the years as you're practicing, right? So the best way I like to think about this, especially for people starting out, is this. Meditation is equal to mental training. And mental training is analogous to physical training. And if you want to look like the Rock, you got to put in the work, right? And I'm not trying to say, you should become the Rock of meditation or anything, but just like with physical exercise, if you're starting out, you're probably way better off starting small and being consistent, right? Or else you're going to burn yourself out. And, I know we're going to cover more than just mindfulness here, but in particular for mindfulness, you want to have this stuff kind of just crop up on its own more often throughout the day. And one of the best ways to do that, I think, is to do a lot of smaller mini meditation sessions throughout the day. And I think you'd get a lot better results out of that than, say, doing, one 90-minute session every Sunday, for example. Something that works really good for me is I have a random alarm generator on my phone with a unique ring to it. And then every time it goes off and I hear it, it's just a little reminder for me to check in with myself mindfully, see what stories I'm currently getting lost into my head, and then boom, carry on. So a real quick thing. But with mental training, what are we training? Well, essentially are training our attention. And at least the way I see it, depending on what you pay attention to, essentially yields different types of meditation. And, different types of meditations absolutely do different things, which we'll get into now. So the four, or actually, I guess maybe three I wanted to talk about, because I already got this whole other long series on hypnagogic or liminal meditation, is going to be focus types of meditation, mindfulness, and then metta. All right, but first up we got the focus style of meditation here. And so this one does have a goal, at least to me it does. Really the goal here is to try to get to one of these locked in, focused, flow type states, right? And to obviously quiet the mind, because you got to get the mind quiet first before you can ever get to one of these peak states. And to do that, what's your object of attention? You can basically use anything, open candle flame is kind of fun to try sometimes. But really the first one everybody starts off with is the breath. Breath is good for a lot of reasons. I'll give you two of them. One, it's constant and always with you, so it's there to be paid attention to if you choose to do so, right? And two is it's very powerful. You can speed up your breathing, you can slow down your breathing, and if you slow down your breathing and take slower, bigger breaths, you tend to get calmer and more relaxed. So it's great for that. Physical sensations can also be really good. A lot of times for me, I like to do like relaxation styles of meditation if I want to be trying to focus on physical sensations, where I'll do it in combination with my breath. So I'll probably be following my breath at first, trying to get the mind quiet. Then eventually when it starts to get more quiet, I'll just start to exhale. And as I exhale, I'll relax as much as I can to the point where I'm pretty much like playing dead. So I like to do this lying down, right? Then inhale, then completely relax on each exhale. And what you can get to is you can start to find this, well, there's a lot of different physical sensations of relaxation. So you try to find and lock in on one. My favorite is this kind of tingly feeling you can find in your extremities or sometimes in your lower abdomen. And then if you can find it, you can just start to use that tingling feeling as your object of attention and really start to build that out. And then you can get to these just very pleasant, body buzzing, almost blissful type states, and great way to fall asleep. So that's the way I like to oftentimes take naps and work my way towards hypnagogia, if you saw some of my other videos on that. And then mental images. For me, when I work with mental images, I go more towards hypnagogia again, where I'll be relaxing with my breaths, kind of calming and getting relaxed, and then you can start to have mental images start to kind of come up on their own. You can also bring specific type of images to mind, if you want to as well, and then try to hold those in your awareness and use that as your anchor, essentially. Then we have mindfulness, and the thing with mindfulness here, at least the way I think about it, is it's not to become so supremely focused on your breath that you block out all other thoughts. To me, that's kind of more the focused meditation approach. the goal here really is to notice when you get distracted, right? And everybody thinks they suck at this stuff at first, right? Oh man, my mind's always getting distracted. It won't calm down. If you're noticing that happening all the time, you're doing great for mindfulness. That is like the goal. I mean, that's what you should be going after, right? And then eventually, when you can kind of start to get past, say, following your breath, noticing a distraction, coming back to your breath, you can start to move on to open awareness, which is really where you no longer have a specific object of attention, such as your breath. Now you're just trying to stay up to the moment and notice whatever you notice as you notice it. One good way to practice doing this, because it can seem overwhelming at first, is to use sound. So basically what you do is you sit someplace that's not dead silent, right? And you can do it eyes open or closed, doesn't matter really, but you just want to try to notice whatever sound catches your attention. Then whatever sound catches your attention, say a car beeping in the distance, you can make a little mental note, car. The cool thing about this is, assuming that car stops beeping, it immediately drops from your awareness because you're waiting for the next sound to catch your ear. Like, oh, here's these chickens going off again, right? There's a chicken. What catches it next? Okay, raindrops falling. Okay, what comes up next? I hear my kids downstairs. So it's a good way to get you to note things, drop them, and then see what comes up next, which is basically what open awareness is, right? But things with open awareness could be anything. So it could be a thought, a sound, physical sensation, mental image, whatever. You just try to stay up to the moment with it. And then lastly, I thought actually I would just kind of group these all together. Again, hypnagogic, hypnopompic, and liminal states. I covered that in a whole separate series. Check that out if you're interested. Metta, which is the whole love and compassion style of meditation. This is actually a really neat one, and one I've been trying to do more often. I like this one because there's like a lot of science kind of behind it, or at least there's one really famous study, I should say, where they had this guy, Matthew Ricard, who was this Western academic guy, moved to the East in like the 70s, become a monk. Basically, and I forget the college name, Berkeley, I think. So anyway, Berkeley, I'm pretty sure it's Berkeley, one of the colleges in California. He still has some connections, right? They go out there, they find him, and they want to bring him back to study his brain when he meditates. And so, their main style being this love and compassion, they put him in the lab, and he's been doing this love and compassion meditation for the last 30 plus years. That when he did it, they hooked him up to all these sensors, and they're like, oh my gosh, that is the most happiest brain we ever seen in our lives, right? And just kind of really drove home the fact of neuroplasticity, neurons that fire together, wire together. He spent so long focusing on these positive feelings, or focusing on, these feelings of love and compassion, that when he did his meditation now, his brain just lit up like the happiest brain they'd ever seen. So that's pretty cool. Mantras. Don't have too much experience with mantras, but it's something that I always kind of wanted to get into. A number of years ago, I really tried to do it and threw down a bunch of money at a TM teacher to have them teach me. It's kind of a waste of money, but it was a cool experience anyway. The reason why I think mantras are cool and why I kind of wanted to get into it is you can develop such a strong anchor to this mantra of being in a calm, relaxed state that, if you're got to go give a presentation or the moment's getting really big and getting kind of caught up in it and stressed out, you can just simply repeat this mantra to yourself, and it has a natural way to kind of calm and relax your body down. Again, man, I tried. I just couldn't really stick to it. I guess I was too used to it and had too many years of experience in other styles of meditation to really keep it up. But I do got my secret mantra that they gave to me that I can't tell nobody. But nonetheless, TM's alright. I don't wanna get on their case too bad. And then affirmations. So I really do like affirmations. I like to use them in tandem with following my breath. So, like in particular, if my mind's really loud and having a hard time getting it quiet, instead of counting my breaths or saying, say, like in and out with my inhales and exhales, I'll put an affirmation along with it. So like, I am on the inhale, exhale, relaxed, or I am at ease, or I am free, or whatever. And the way I think that works is, like once you kind of learn a language, at that point you're helpless to decode it. When you're hearing me talk, if I ain't mumbling like I do sometimes, your brain's gonna automatically, see, there's a mumble, decode what I said. So I think when you use that in tandem with your following your breath, it's just another kind of way to, one, keep you on top of your breath, right? Because you're using it in tandem with it. But two, to kind of give that little push in that direction to be calm, be relaxed, and quiet the mind. So I find it can be quite good for that. Okay, and then the last thing to cover here is going to be signs of progress. This is not stuff I made up. This came from Joseph Goldstein, who's like one of the OGs who brought this stuff from the east to the west back in the 70s and things like that. So these are his, but I did separate them into in practice and out of practice stuff. So for in practice, is there more ease dealing with things that arise? So like, you know, everybody at first thinks they suck at it and they let that kind of beat them down and, you know, discourage them from the practice. But really, everybody's mind is like that, you know. Is there more ease dealing with it? Just, hey, you know, my mind's kind of loud now. Don't worry about it. Stick with it. Stay calm and relax, and it'll eventually start to quiet down. Are you becoming aware of the wandering mind more quickly? So an example of that would be like, say you're following your breath, right? You're sitting there with your eyes closed trying to follow your breath. Your stomach rumbles. McDonald's. Man, I haven't eaten McDonald's in like a month. Oh, but no, that's kind of against my diet, but you know, it's so cheap, it's kind of worth it. And I've only at McDonald's, shoots, I might as well go to Taco Bell. You know, I have like that Mexican pizza, man, that's really good. And then all of a sudden you realize you're lost in thought. You try to let that go and come back to your breath. So is that getting quicker? Maybe your stomach rumbles, hunger pops into your mind. Thought, let it go, come back to your breath. Something like that. Is the strategic use of thinking becoming softer? So this is kind of hard to explain. I think if you just, you just gotta kind of put your time in on the cushion to kind of figure out what that means. But there's a way to talk in your head and make mental notes loudly, and there's a way to do it quietly. Are you beginning to understand what that means? And then this is a really good one. Is it getting easier to sit longer? You know, at first, 5 or 10 minutes is going to seem like an eternity. You know, then can you start doing it for, 30 minutes, an hour, or something like that? Then outside of practice stuff, are you becoming less immediately reactive to difficult situations, such as, that story with me and my son? It's the really kind of cool thing is you can start to develop anchors to things where, like, say the feeling of anger or something like that can actually become a trigger to trigger mindfulness. Now, sometimes being angry, most of the time being angry feels kind of good. There's a weird pleasure out of it, right? It's kind of why people get wrapped up in it so much. But at least having this mindfulness pop in there gives you one more opportunity to kind of try and drop it, right? And then are you becoming more aware of the changing nature of consciousness and holding on to things less? So my views on this always kind of changes. Where I'm kind of sitting at it now is, the whole grass is always greener thing. Are you stop thinking about like, oh, if only I had that, things would be so much better off. Get you to kind of just sit there, be in the moment, and realize, man, everything is just fine as it is, right? So with that said, that will kind of wrap up this one. Leave any questions or comments you may have. Aloha.